began to feel the tension the very first day we were rehearsing.
Girl, I like the way you rock. You told me secrets that you never told us.
I was scarred, devastatedly, blow to the chest, Boyz II Men.
From each other.
I was trying to connect with these guys who already had a connection.
Hold me now. It's hard for me to say.
They just was not, they weren't having it.
You used to get in touch. You used to get little, get used to getting too much.
Now you gotta understand, the first thing I'm thinking is, Babyface is calling my phone.
I will make it up to you.
So I had to leave the rehearsal. I'll never forget that very first day.
Deep in the night, right by the fireside.
I could feel the tension.
Used to being down, he used to being lifted up.
But you have a lot of groups that can tell you their stories. Azure is one of them.
And after all that's been said and done,
That took for granted the most amazing opportunity.
used to get me every night.
You don't have to even like me. Just let's do our jobs, let's do it well.
I know when I can give it to you.
It was more of an internal dysfunctional problem within the group.
Hold me now. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
Had to learn the hard way, and the hard way was failure at the end of the day.
I can't let go.
They were backed by Babyface, endorsed by L.A. Reid, had a platinum-selling debut album, a Grammy nomination, chart-topping singles, and vocals that could rival Boyz II Men at their peak. So why did As Yet never blow up the way they were supposed to? Why did one of the greatest R&B groups of the 90s vanish after just one album, only to reappear years later with a completely different lineup, no momentum, and barely a whisper of the magic they once had? Here's the part you probably didn't know. As Yet was never built to last. Behind the smooth harmonies and million-dollar videos was a chaotic mess of industry sabotage, internal betrayal, stolen royalties, and one of the messiest management situations in R&B history. And the worst part? It was orchestrated by people who were supposed to protect them, including Babyface's own mother-in-law, who acted as their manager. That's right. The group that Babyface signed to his label was being managed by his wife's mom, and what started as a family hookup quickly turned into a business nightmare. Add to that a rotating door of lead singers, legal deals gone wrong, a trademark betrayal, and founding members getting erased from their own legacy. As Yet didn't fall off. They were systematically dismantled from the inside. Even the members who tried to save the group ended up getting pushed out, blackballed, or left heartbroken. One of them even said missing out on success with Boyz II Men traumatized him for years. So how did a group with so much potential get taken down before they really began? This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't bad luck. This was something much deeper. And it started long before the first album ever dropped. In the early 90s, Philadelphia was producing some of the most iconic R&B talent in the world, and As Yet looked like the next breakout. But from the beginning, their story was built on shaky ground. The group started as a simple duo, Dion Allen and Sean Rivera, two choir kids trying to chase a dream. They weren't backed by money, fame, or industry connections, just raw talent and a hustle mentality. Then came Kenny Terry, overheard singing in a hotel washroom, then Claude, then Deshawn, then Damon and Allie. The group ballooned to 7 members, then dropped to 5, then 4, then reshuffled again. By the time they finally caught their break, the original dream was already getting buried under constant turnover. But then came the deal that changed everything. Their demo landed in the hands of Jacqueline McQuarn, a powerful figure in Los Angeles with one major connection. She was married into the Babyface empire. Her son-in-law was Kenneth "Babyface" Edmonds, one of the most powerful names in R&B. Through Jacqueline, As Yet suddenly had access to Babyface, L.A. Reid, and the LaFace records machine. And that's when the illusion really started, because on the surface, it looked like a golden ticket. But what they didn't realize was that Jacqueline, their manager, wasn't just looking out for them. She was family to the people signing their checks, the ones who could make or break their career. That's a dangerous conflict of interest, and it only got messier from there. While the group hustled to survive rotating members, conflicting visions, and non-stop pressure to deliver, they were also trapped in a web where business and family politics blurred every line. It felt like they'd finally arrived, but in reality, they were already being set up to implode. Because when your manager reports to your label and also sits at their dinner table, you're not the priority, you're the pawn. Before As Yet ever saw the spotlight, Mark Nelson had already lost everything once. He was one of the founding members of Boyz II Men, not a background singer, not a fill-in, a literal co-creator of the group, childhood best friends with Nathan Morris. They even came up with the group's name together. But when opportunity came knocking, Mark got left on the other side of the door. Why? Because he was 18, while the other members were still minors, able to get out of their local management contracts. Mark, as a legal adult, couldn't. And when Michael Bivins of New Edition discovered the group and offered to manage them, the boys left Mark behind without looking back. It destroyed him. He's admitted publicly that the experience was so traumatic he cried for years. He carried the weight of watching the group he created become global superstars without him. So when Babyface and LaFace Records gave him a second shot, this time as a lead vocalist in As Yet, it felt like destiny correcting itself. But fate had other plans. Because just as Yet started to catch fire, Mark got cut out again. Only this time, the betrayal came from inside the house. In later interviews, he made it sound like he left voluntarily to pursue a solo career. But then came the twist. Sean Rivera claimed Mark didn't leave. He was voted out. The group turned on him. The man with the platinum voice, the co-founder of Boyz II Men, the industry survivor finally getting his shot, and they voted him out like he was disposable. He eventually came back for a short reunion years later, but the trust was already gone. Twice in his life, Mark Nelson helped build something iconic. And twice, he got erased from history. And the saddest part? This time it wasn't business contracts or legal roadblocks. It was ego, jealousy, and group politics that left him on the outside looking in again. You'd think being managed by Babyface's own mother-in-law would mean As Yet had an unfair advantage in the music industry. But according to the members themselves, that connection may have been what destroyed them. From the outside, Jacqueline McQuarn looked like a queenmaker. She discovered As Yet, signed them, and plugged them straight into the Babyface pipeline. That's how they got on LaFace Records. That's how they toured with After 7 and El DeBarge. That's how they landed their chart-topping single Last Night and even got on the Nutty Professor soundtrack. But behind the scenes, it was chaos. In later interviews, both Mark Nelson and Sean Rivera blamed the group's stunted success on management conflicts. Specifically, Jacqueline. Mark went as far as calling the setup incestuous. Think about it. Babyface and L.A. Reid ran the label. Jacqueline was family. Any decision that should have been about the group's best interests became a family business meeting behind closed doors. Sean revealed that industry insiders actually warned them, if you don't change management, certain doors will never open. Let that sink in. The same people who gave As Yet their big break may have been the ones quietly shutting every other door behind it. Even worse, Sean claimed the group wasn't dropped by LaFace. They were paid to leave. The label was being absorbed by a parent company, and As Yet was quietly ushered out the back while other acts were prioritized. No press, no announcement, no proper send-off. Just a slow fade into silence while internal drama mounted. By the time the dust settled, the damage was done. The group that should have been Babyface's legacy project became his biggest missed opportunity, and nobody from the LaFace empire came to rescue them. Was it neglect? Was it strategy? Or was it a quiet decision made in a room As Yet never got invited into? Either way, it left the group dangling in limbo, unsigned, unmanaged, and unsure who they could even trust. If you thought the drama ended when As Yet faded from the charts, think again. Because after the label drama, after the management issues, after all the comebacks and quiet exits, there was one betrayal that cut deeper than all the rest. It happened when Sean Rivera, one of the original members who helped shape the group's sound, discovered something unthinkable. The other members had re-registered the As Yet trademark without his name on it. Not only was Sean excluded from ownership of the very group he helped build, he says they also held his royalties hostage until he fought to get them released. Let's pause on that. This is the man who produced the a cappella arrangement of their breakout single, Hard to say I'm sorry. The man who stuck around through all the early turbulence. The man who arranged, recorded, and contributed vocals when the group was still clawing for recognition. And they cut him out of the name, out of the money, out of the legacy. It wasn't just a disagreement over direction. This was a financial ambush. A coordinated effort to rewrite the paperwork and erase his ownership without telling him. Sean didn't walk away quietly. In a later interview, he revealed that when Mark brought a new record deal to the table, one that involved re-recording Last Night without Babyface, Sean said no. The terms were shady, and they would have ended up owing the label money. He accepted being outvoted. He stepped aside. But when he saw that trademark registration and his name was nowhere to be found, that was the final straw. These weren't just creative differences. This was legal warfare among friends. And the silence around it? Deafening. No public fallout, no interviews explaining their side, just quiet moves in the background to claim a legacy that was never meant to belong to just a few. And for Sean, it wasn't about ego. It was about respect. And when even that was denied, he walked away for good. After everything Mark Nelson went through, being cut from Boyz II Men, getting voted out of As Yet, and watching his career stall while others soared, it seemed like he finally had a comeback in sight. He was working with Tony Grant, another As Yet alum, and together they had a bold idea: create an R&B supergroup made up of the lead singers from As Yet, Blackstreet, and Silk. They called it Blaze. Just the concept alone had fans buzzing. 3 powerhouse voices, 3 legendary groups, one unified project that could have revived 90s R&B and reintroduced soul harmony to a new generation. It was ambitious, nostalgic, and according to Mark, it was about to happen. He had a publishing deal with Sony at the time and pitched the idea to them. They liked it, backed it, funded the early recordings. They even got so far as landing a deal offer from J Records, one of the biggest R&B-focused labels of the 2000s. The paperwork was nearly done. The group was about to become real. And then, one of the members ruined everything. Mark refused to name names. He simply said, "I won't even say who it is." But he killed the whole thing for us. It was ridiculous. No other details, just that the entire deal collapsed over ego, conflict, or sabotage. The very same demons that haunted As Yet from the beginning. It's the kind of industry heartbreak that fans never see. On the surface, it looks like nothing ever happened. But behind the scenes, the biggest comeback in decades was destroyed before a single note reached the public. For Mark, it was another near miss. Another dream almost realized, and another group that fell apart because the people inside it couldn't get out of their own way. Blaze wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was the last shot at redemption, and someone pulled the plug. Here's a question the group never seems to answer. What happened to Daryl Anthony Hobbs? You won't find his name mentioned in interviews, not in retrospectives, not even in reunion announcements. As Yet acts like he never existed. And it's not just Daryl. Early members like Ali Hyman, Damon Core, and Deshaun Benson, men who were part of the original lineup, who helped shape the group before the label deals and platinum plaques, have been wiped from the group's public memory. No shoutouts, no acknowledgements, no explanations, just a black hole where names used to be. But when fans dig into the archives, Daryl's involvement is obvious. He was there when the group officially signed with LaFace. He was part of their debut album cycle. He was As Yet. So why the silence? From what little can be found, it seems Daryl quietly stepped away from the spotlight. Instead of chasing fame, he shifted toward writing, producing, and even working in sales and marketing for corporate companies. He built a stable life outside of music, but the other members' refusal to even mention him? That feels personal. In group interviews, when questions come up about past lineups, there's a visible discomfort, awkward laughs, quick pivots. It's not just forgetfulness. It feels intentional, like someone's been blacklisted, like there are secrets nobody's allowed to say on camera. And that raises the real question. What happened behind the scenes that made them erase their own history? Was it bitterness over business? Loyalty disputes? Or was there something deeper? A betrayal so raw that even decades later, it's still too painful to name. Whatever the reason, As Yet doesn't just have a messy history, they have ghosts. And in the music world, silence is usually the loudest form of storytelling. By the late 2000s, As Yet had become a revolving door with no welcome mat. Every few years, a new lineup would emerge like a distant echo of the past, promising a rebirth, teasing a comeback, holding on to the shadow of a once golden era. But none of them stuck. In 2004, a version of the group reappeared, without any of the original five. Just Daryl, some new faces, and an EP that quietly faded into the void. That lineup disappeared by 2007. Then in 2008, the impossible happened. A resurrection. Dion, Sean, Kenny, Tony, Mark, the original voices, the dream team, together again. It should have been magic, but instead, chaos. Mark and Tony were out almost as fast as they were in. Claude, one of the group's earliest members, suddenly popped back in. Then Mark came back. Then Sean was gone. The group felt like a jigsaw puzzle that kept being dumped on the floor mid-assembly. And yet somehow, in 2016, they finally released their second official album, She's Magic, a full 20 years after their debut. But the world had moved on. R&B had changed. The fans who once blasted Last Night were older, scattered, and barely aware that As Yet was still around. There was no major label push, no radio play, no viral moment, just a quiet drop and an even quieter reception. By 2019, the group released a new single, Kleptomaniac, with a completely reworked lineup. Dion, Claude, Kenny, and a newcomer named Paris Smith. It didn't chart, it barely made a ripple. Then Kenny left, but insisted he was still always a member. The kind of breakup line you say when you want to keep one foot in the past without admitting it's over. The truth? As Yet didn't just suffer from bad luck or industry betrayal, they suffered from identity collapse. Too many comebacks, too many voices, and no clear center holding them together. It wasn't a dramatic fall. It was a slow unraveling. As Yet had everything. A debut that went platinum, Babyface in their corner, a Grammy nomination, chart-topping singles, and yet they're rarely mentioned in the same breath as Boyz II Men, Jodeci, or Blackstreet. Why? Because As Yet didn't just fade, they were erased. Their story wasn't one of talent falling short, it was one of internal sabotage, conflicted leadership, industry politics, and personal betrayals that cut deeper than any chart position ever could. The public saw the suits, the harmonies, the high-budget videos, but behind closed doors, there were legal battles over trademarks, royalties being withheld, friendships turning into lawsuits, and former members being edited out of history like they never mattered. Even their biggest opportunities, like Blaze, the R&B supergroup that could have revived all three legendary acts, were destroyed by egos and silent sabotage. And the ones who tried to speak out got replaced, rebranded, or just ignored. Today, the As Yet name still floats in the background of R&B nostalgia. You might hear Last Night at a wedding or on a throwback playlist, but most people have no idea what the group went through. No idea that the reason there was never a real follow-up wasn't because they didn't have the talent. It's because someone didn't want them to win. Maybe it was bad business. Maybe it was ego. Or maybe, just maybe, some legacies are never allowed to grow when they come from the wrong combination of people, power, and timing. As Yet deserved more. And if there's one thing they proved, it's that sometimes the hardest fights don't happen on stage. They happen behind it.